That's good.
Right?
I already pressed record.
Oh, I have my phone on yet.
You guys can ask me questions if you feel necessary.
Are you going straight to it, or like rocky, or are we like, where are we going?
Yeah, what do you want?
You want to
Or just
slowly
do-
go into it?
Or you can do. Yeah.
You can slowly go into it.
So should I say, as far as
can
loneliness
look
goes
this
in my life, or like ask a question and,
What do you feel like doing? Do you feel like sharing a personal story, or do you feel like asking some questions?
well, I talked a lot the last time, so maybe, well, I know.
I think it's gonna ebb and flow. I think that's good. It's
Yeah.
gonna ebb and flow, and sometimes I'll talk a lot. Like last one, I didn't. I only talked a little.
I
bit,
didn't talk a
really
lot last
much,
one.
because you know you want to talk a lot right now.
That's all you
Maybe
do.
I'll just ask leading questions or whatever.
Yes, ask Lee.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna open, Christy. You're gonna say today we're talking about.
We're gonna
Loneliness and
start a session on
isolation.
loneliness.
We're gonna start a series.
Well, we're only doing. Are we doing more than two? Because this is gonna lead into sexuality. So we could just
I would
say
say
A
today,
two-part,
this week,
a two-part,
a two-part series.
a two-part series on loneliness. Today we really want to isolation.
Isolate on the isolation part of loneliness.
I'm a poet and didn't know it.
Okay. And then you want to give a general overview of what isolation does to.
I think maybe I'm going to piggyback it off of the mental illness we just talked about.
So last time we spoke about.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Alright.
It's ready. So it's up to you. One day we're gonna have to do like a bloopers,
That'd be really cool.
like weird.
Well,
Do
your
you say
friend
all
can
this
help us with that when
Yeah.
she like.
Oh, there you go.
Alright, you guys good?
Yep.
Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to
Hi,
talk
guys.
about. Hi, sorry, I rushed into that. We're going to talk about loneliness and isolation, and we're going to do a two-part series with this one because it's a really good topic, and it's something that we just really want to hit home with because it stems with a lot of different issues in our lives. So why not talk about it? Why not get deep, and why not get real? The last time we spoke, we talked about anxiety, depression, mental illness, and I know for me personally with anxiety, loneliness is huge in that. It's really easy to take myself out of life and say, this is only me, I'm the only one, and not to allow things in to help me become free from that. So I think it's important that we address these things today and just kind of share some of our own experiences, our own journeys with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good.
Alright. So,
So yeah, isolation is something that has been huge for me in my life from the time I was small up until now. It's something that I really struggle with, and I have to work really hard to get myself out of my own personal bubble when something's going on with me.
yeah.
So as a child, I was raised with my mom and my stepdad, and my parents and I did not have a close relationship growing up. We do now. They're fantastic, and I love them so much. But growing up was really difficult for me, and I often found myself avoiding everyone and just kind of hiding away in my room. I'd play in my room by myself all the time. That's where I was happy. And I learned to use isolation as a safety net for me. And I really lived in that place for a long time. I did have some friends, you know, here and there, the older I got, especially when we started going to church, and then through youth group and stuff. But it wasn't until I got to college where I really started opening myself up to people. The problem was the people that I was opening up to were not good for me, you know, so I kind of, I never was able to identify who I was. I didn't know because it was just me, you know, I didn't know, like when children have friends, they learn that they're different from their friends, but that it's a good thing that they're accepted for those differences.
Sure.
And they learn to interact with other children. I just didn't want to do that. So when I got to college, I was like, yay! You know, like, here these people are who accept me for who I am, you know, which I didn't even know who I was at the time, but that's what I thought. started getting myself really into some situations. And my junior year of college ended up getting into a relationship with a woman. And so that started to isolate me even further because I did have a religious background. I had a Christian upbringing. But in the church I was raised in, everything was wrong. It was either right or wrong. There were really no explanations about things.
Yeah.
And so when I found myself in this relationship, I thought, oh no, like, I'm going to hell. I'm the worst person in the world. This is the worst sin of them all. And so that further isolated me from people.
Right.
And a couple years into it, I was like, this is just not right. This is not who I am. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get myself out of it. And I had started going back to church, and God really spoke to me, and he was like, I'll take care of this. I got you. You just have to trust me. I didn't realize what that process would look like, going into it. But I really struggled. There was just a whole mess of things that happened at this time where I was like, okay, I need to find my way out of this situation. My whole life changed. I had moved out on my own. It was the first time I was ever living on my own. I wasn't in a relationship anymore. And that was just difficult. Anytime you go through a breakup of any kind, it's just difficult in general.
Sure.
The friends that I had, I was really trying to find people that could help me in my faith, help guide me. And the friends that I had didn't have the same beliefs that I did, and they were also involved in things that I was trying to get out of. Not all of them.
Yeah.
But because of that, there were so many things that I was like, I just can't talk to anyone about anything that's going on. And I pulled myself back.
Shut down.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. And then I found myself depressed, which is, we talked about last time. There were days I just could not even get out of bed. I would go to work. I'd wake up, I'd go to work, I would put a smile on my face, no one knew what was going on inside of me. And I would cry all day long at work. And I always had an excuse too. If somebody came up behind me and I wasn't expecting it, oh, I just yawned or sneezed or something.
Yeah.
So people didn't know. I didn't want people to know. And then even the friends that I did share with, this whole time I was in that relationship, I never told my family, my parents. I never told the church people that were still in my life. I never told anyone.
Wow.
And
So you isolated the relationship as well.
Yes.
Wow.
So I felt like the last almost 10 years of my life were just a secret.
Wow.
And so I didn't have the energy to tell people like, hey, this is what happened these last couple of years and I'm stuck. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I started seeing a life coach at Christ Community, and she was wonderful and really helped me set like little goals. She told me, I always was afraid to be angry or upset, and she's like, you're grieving. It's okay to feel the way that you do.
Yeah.
And she really helped shine a light on that and for me to work through it and not try to run from it anymore.
Yeah.
And then she got me to write as an outlet. Writing is something I was always very passionate about, but I had stopped doing it, just, life.
Yeah.
And so I made that a higher priority. And over time, there was a friend of mine that had reached out to me and told me, I've been waiting for you to come to me, to talk to me about the things because she did know. She knew about the relationship. She knew pieces of things.
Okay.
And it wasn't until she said, you're sick, you've made yourself sick. She said, I don't know, you don't have to come to me, I don't know what you feel like you need to do about it, but you have to do something. You cannot keep going down this road. And that's actually when I started with the life coaching around that same time. But still, even, there were things I did not tell my life coach. And I was just so ashamed of myself and so completely alone, and I just thought, I'm never gonna get out of this. Like, there is no one I can talk to. Either people don't know and I don't have the energy to explain it all, or they're just going to judge me and I'm going to feel worse in the long run. There were a lot of things that were going through my mind, and it wasn't until I did a little mini session with this verse, but Exodus 14:14 says that the Lord will fight for you. You just have to be still.
Yes.
And I got to a point where I was just struggling so much, and he showed me that verse, and I just lost it. I was like, I can't do this anymore. You have have to take this.
Yeah.
You have to change my heart.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to send the right people into my life. You have to do something. I am lost and I'm done. I can't fight this anymore. And he did. It was at that moment that he was finally able to, I told my life coach, he finally was able to get me still enough to let it go. Because I just kept struggling. I just kept struggling.
Right.
To give him the reins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then slowly I started telling pieces of my story. I remember the first time that I told a Christian friend of mine that I struggled with same-sex attraction. I thought for sure when I told her, I was like, she is going to look at me like I am disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to stop the friendship. She's not going to want anything to do with me.
Oh.
And she just met me with such love. And she
Yeah.
was like,
Beautiful.
we all have our stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure do.
It's
We
okay.
all
It's
have
part of your
stuff.
story.
Yes.
So that really helped change the way I viewed myself. And then when we started meeting for Speak Up For Her, I was like, I have to tell my parents. I have to tell my family that these are things that I was struggling with because, again, they were not in my life. I mean, they were in my life, but they were not, I did
Aware.
not share. Right.
Sure.
They weren't aware of things that were going on. And I was not, at that time when these things were happening, I still did not have a good relationship with them. So
Okay.
I did not feel comfortable
Right.
talking to them about these things. And God's done such amazing things between us, you know, between me and my mom and me and my stepdad, and then us
As a
together.
family.
Yes.
That's great.
And so I told them, I texted my mom and I was like, hey, can I come over tonight? And there's some things I want to talk to you about, because I kind of told them pieces that Speak Up For Her was getting started. But I'm like, if I'm going to put all this out there, then
You should know first.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
sure.
And they, again, met me with such love. I don't think that if that had happened any sooner, if I had shared with them any sooner, that they would have not reacted the way that they would have, and that would have pushed me further away.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, God's done such great things, but for me, getting out of that isolation was just one prayer. The prayers that I was praying at that time were the most honest I have ever been.
Mm.
So
I mean, there were times where I was like, okay, God, I have hate in my heart, and I don't want to change. I don't want to change. So you're going to have to change me, because I'm angry. You know,
Yeah.
and he was like, I'm your vindicator.
Wow.
I have this. You know, and there were times I was pushing away even the people that were trying to help, and God was like, I'm your safe place. I will protect you. There's a verse, Psalms 144:1 that says, there's only one strong, safe, and secure place for me. It's in God, and I love him. He is the one that gives me skill and strength for the battle.
Yeah.
I just love that verse because he is all of those things.
Seriously.
You don't have to worry about protecting yourself. He's going to do it for you. Yes, things are going to happen, and they're going to
Yeah.
hurt, and they're going to
Yeah.
suck, but he will make everything right. We might not see it, but he will. He promises to do
Or it may not be the way you're thinking he's
Right.
going to do
Right,
it.
exactly. You have certain expectations, and when he doesn't
Mhm.
meet them, you're disappointed.
Right. Right.
Right.
When you were just talking, I just had this thing. I've become a one-liner. Like, I just get these one-lines. But I just had this thought, there's no restoration in isolation. As you were talking
Oh,
about,
yeah,
because you're talking about your parents and what the Lord did with that, but you had to come out of that to get
Right.
that. If you stayed there, you'd have
And
never
it's
gotten that.
terrifying. And if you let that fear make your decisions, you're going to be stuck there forever. You will not be able to get out of it.
And you miss
You
out.
yes, you have
Right.
to push through. As difficult as it is, as scary as it is, you have to push through that.
Yeah.
You do. And then there is reward at the end of
Mhm.
that.
Right.
Mhm.
So I was just like, and I was like, ooh, that was like powerful. I'm over here like
Yeah.
listening, and I'm like, ooh, like, because so many times in your life, different trauma may come in, different things come in, and you're just like, there is like this automatic
It
like,
tries to define you.
yeah, and then you're just like, whoop, isolate.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go to myself, and you know, you get in your own head, and you try to process it yourself, or you know, but then if you're not willing to come out of that, you miss out on even seeing and experiencing grace. You experience what you experienced when you were able to finally come and say, hey, this is what's been going on. You were met with love and grace, and you know what I
Even
mean?
my stepdad, he was like, you're such a strong person. I knew something deeper was going on inside of you, but you didn't really show it. And so I
You
thought
didn't know how to
you-
help.
Yeah, and that broke his heart. That
Mm.
he felt like he could not help me because I wasn't
Yeah.
able to communicate my needs to
Right.
him.
Mm-hmm.
So that made our relationship stronger, you know, because I now realized he would have been there for me if I had let myself be vulnerable with
Wow.
him instead of pushing away.
That's powerful. And then the enemy is always gonna be like, they're gonna throw you apart. They're just gonna tear you apart.
Yep.
Don't even worry about it. Stay in
Yeah.
your little corner.
Right.
This is your safe place. We're good here. It's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
It's only
It's only
me.
me.
I got
I-
me covered.
I love
can't
me.
find out my
I-
own
yeah.
actions.
exactly. I'm not gonna hurt me.
Yeah.
So stay here. So that you know. But then on the other side of that, there was love and there was compassion and like
And
you
that's
know,
part of the restoration
and
process.
that's part of the huge part of it.
Mhm.
But we have to be willing to like go, okay, no. I can't stay here anymore. I gotta come out here and be in community. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think when we finally break the isolation, like we get our power back.
Mhm.
We get our like slowly but surely we get our strength back, and I just think maybe something that just to like give people a timeline, like that wasn't an overnight thing for you. Like that
Oh
was a
no,
journey.
that was a long process.
That was
That was my
years.
whole life. I had to learn to break the lies that I had made my own truth from the time I was little, the whole way through
Right.
early adulthood.
Right.
I remember times where when I could get out of bed, I'd call off work because I was too sick to get out of bed, emotionally sick.
Yeah.
And I would just get to a point where I was like, I'm done, you know, like I don't know where to go from here. And it wasn't until I was able to get honest that I could
Right.
move forward.
Right. I think that's huge. Honest is a huge word. I think for a lot of people, some people are scared to be honest. They believe the lie, so they're scared to face it. And I think we've all touched on this before, but when you expose it, when you expose the pain, when you expose the addiction, when you expose the pornography, when you expose the isolation, whatever it is, it has less power, and the more you face it, the less power it keeps getting, and eventually
True.
it has no power.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, we spoke last week a lot about truth and also about, you know, letting people know what's going on. But isolation says no.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
You can't trust them. They don't
Exactly.
love you. It's gonna be really bad. It's gonna scar you. You know, it creates these like, it tells you 15 scenarios and they're all bad of what
Yeah.
could happen if you really open yourself up. But then it's like you have to retrain your mind and say
Seriously.
that can't be true.
Right.
And then when you have the experience of, okay, now I'm doing this, okay, mom and dad, let's talk. And then you're like, but wait a minute, I thought that was gonna be awful, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. And God's
Yeah.
able to show you, like, I told you I got you. Like, did you
Yeah.
not believe
Yeah.
me? Like,
Right.
I'm with you, you know. He goes with us when we have to face the awful things that we've done or what other people have done to us, but we have to fight the urge to be the, you know, where they say like no man is an island, no
Mhm.
man stands alone. We were not built for that. We were actually made for community. You know, when in the beginning God made Adam, he's like, nope, not good for you to be
Right.
alone.
Not good.
Mhm.
From the beginning, he's like, no, let's change that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then they got together, be fruitful and multiply. Like we were meant for
Right.
community. We were meant, and even before that, you know, before they procreated, they walked and talked with God. We always had community.
Yes.
You know, we
Yes.
always had that.
Yes.
So we have to be able to sometimes step back and go, no. This isolation, these thoughts are pushing me away from everyone
Away
around
from-
me. No, I wasn't meant for that. I'm not strong when I'm on my own.
No.
I know I'm not. I'm willing to admit that I'm not as strong when I'm just
Girl, you're
I'm in
preaching.
like my zone. I got this. I'm strong.
Mhm.
I'm fine. You know, if you come in, you're just gonna distract me. No. Like when I'm on my own, I'm not as wise. I'm not seeing as clearly.
Mhm.
I'm.
You might not even be as truthful by yourself.
Can we talk about that? Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Right.
And sometimes you can't see it.
No, because you're all alone. And
Well, I didn't. In my situation, I didn't.
Right.
I knew that I was in a bad place, but I did not see how sick I really was until a friend of mine stepped out of her comfort zone and said, hey, you need help.
Yeah.
And she did that out of love.
Yeah.
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 Thank God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I think sometimes in our friendships, sometimes we can be really surface with it and just be like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And like, you know,
Yeah.
we do more superficial things rather than how are you? How's your soul? What are you struggling with this
Yeah,
week?
let's
What you
talk.
know, what's that relationship with your boss? I know last week was kind of bad. You know what I mean? Following up with each other, and we have to be willing to be the advocate for our friends and our family and the people in our community, so you don't default back to isolation. Because we have so many people, we have different defaults, you know, it could be
Yeah.
self-hatred, you know, isolation and different things we have, but we have to advocate for each other. Love advocates.
Yeah.
And love says you're
Worth
it's
it.
worse than you know, come back. You know,
Yeah.
and like call each other
Right.
up higher.
Right.
And so it's a healthier environment. If
Absolutely.
you're healthy, that's great for me.
Right.
You know, I think sometimes with like the competitive nature of us, we're just like, it's okay. Like, you know, or sometimes we get scared. Like, I don't want to go there with my friend. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring that up.
Well, like Kyle said earlier about like the sin, like she's committed the worst sin. So we get into a place where like, well, my crap's dirtier than hers, my sin's dirtier than hers, like my situation's suckier, so I'm not even gonna talk
Equals
about it.
more into
because-
yeah.
Or the
And
other
where
way.
that came from for me, honestly, was the church.
Mhm.
The church is the one who unfortunately, who planted that seed that homosexuality is the worst
It's like the
sin.
abominable.
And so when I
yeah.
committed that, I thought, that's it, I'm done. What's the point of anything else?
Can't go any worse than this.
But it was the church that spoke truth into me and taught me, I love you anyway. I love you no matter what your struggle
Right.
is. You are not defined by this. I say that I struggle with same-sex attraction, which we'll talk more about in an episode to come. But not homosexuality. The difference is one is an identity. You take on an identity.
Good.
You know, one is just a struggle. We all struggle with something.
Sure.
Things.
But we are overcomers.
Right.
That is
Amen.
the truth.
Right. Right.
More than conquerors.
Right. Right.
Amen.
That's really good.
I'm all round up. I'm like, Amen. We are powerful. We're strong in Him.
Yeah.
But again, restoration.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so in the beginning, the seed was planted, you know,
And then it attacks
unknowingly.
young. The enemy
Woo!
goes in.
Come on.
Way, like,
childhood.
way
You're
in.
not even
Yeah.
aware because
You
you're
don't
not
know.
aware.
You
That's
have
exactly
no clue
why
why
he does
you're
it.
doing those things.
You
So
think
yeah.
those things, you end up
You think
thinking
they're
those things are
normal.
normal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not until later in life you're like, wait a second, something is not right here.
Yeah.
And once you can address that, change, it's just gonna flow.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long that
Seriously.
process takes, but it's
Yeah.
just gonna flow from you because you have found out, you've identified the truth of the
Yeah.
situation, the treasure of truth, and then you can move forward
Right.
from there.
And even like you were talking about earlier, like you were so honest and real in your prayers with God. Like that's something I think we all need to realize is like we can literally just like sit here now. Listen, God, this isn't okay. I know it's not right. I have no
That's what I
idea
do.
where it's coming from,
Mhm.
but like help me.
Yeah, right. We don't have to have the answers before we come
No
to God.
way.
I
No
remember
way.
telling you a story about that I had a really bad day at work, and I took it out on somebody on the phone, which I try not to do. And I went I got in trouble, not in trouble, but this person reported me, and so my supervisor had to talk with me, and she knows it's way out of character for me, but I went for a walk at lunch that day to pray, and I was like, I am so angry, and I am not going to ask for forgiveness because she's the one who started it, you know, but that was my prayer, and in saying those things, God was like, all right, you go ahead and get it out. Once you're done, once you're ready, we'll address the issue.
Come
But
on.
he waited for me.
Right.
And if people go into their prayer life thinking they have to have the answer, they have to know why they are the way that they are, it's a lie.
It's a
It's a
lie.
lie.
True.
You can come
So
to
good.
God wherever you are, no matter what the
Anytime.
situation is. You just for him, I mean, like I was really having a difficult time with forgiveness at that time. There were people I was just so angry with. I mean, my whole personality changed when I was going through this. I was angry, I was mean, I would say things just to hurt people, just because I was hurting that deeply, and I didn't know how to deal with that pain. And so when I could bring it to God and be like, look, I don't know how to forgive. I don't know how to let these things go. I know that I'm out of control, but I can't fix it. And we are made strong in our weakness. Once you get to that point, you
So
bring
that's
your
good.
weakness to him, he meets you at that moment. You don't have to fix things on your own. He'll direct you, and it does take time, and people don't want to be patient. They
Right.
want
Yeah.
the microwave society. They
Yeah.
just want it
Fix it, God. Fix
now.
it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to unlearn years of incorrect habits and patterns and attitudes
Because
and,
they
and
become
identity.
lifestyles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that takes time. You got to be
Right.
patient with yourself. You have to be. My life coach taught me you have to be patient with yourself. You have to turn around and recognize every little tiny baby step that you've taken.
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to. Some people can leap from here to there. I didn't. I literally crawled on my hands and knees. Every day was a struggle for me. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Didn't feel like that. I had to convince myself of it.
Mhm.
But once you get to a point and you can stop and turn around and look, you're like,
Oh
wow,
my
I
goodness.
can't believe how far I've come.
Yeah.
And then that gives you the strength to keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Bible says to ask and keep on asking. And I feel like some days that's all I do is ask. But then there's other days where all I do is celebrate because I'm like, wow, look,
That's
I
good.
got through that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
not easy. Like, I know I bring this up a lot, but it's because it's real right now in my life, is dealing with the death of my father, who was never in my life, denied me my whole life, didn't want me. Like, that was huge. And I would ask and ask and ask him all the time. And here's a point I want to make. When I learned to forgive my dad about 3 years ago, I would pray that God would put people in his life to let him know he's loved. And I was like, obviously it's not me, and I have to be okay with that. But God, he needs to know he's loved. He's caught up in addiction, and he's just doing just things that aren't good. Let him know he's loved. So at his funeral, a family came to me, a mother and a son and a daughter, and they told me they were his neighbors for the past 2 years, and that they would talk to him, make dinner with him. Sometimes he'd come over crying, sometimes he'd come over angry. They would hear him angry in his apartment, and they'd go over and try to help, and he wouldn't want it. But like, literally, it brought tears to my eyes, and I was like, you gave him people to love him.
Mhm.
In like, and I asked for that all the time, and I might not have never known that, but like the beauty in asking and the beauty is forgiving yourself. That's another thing that isolation does, is it puts you in a corner and it says you're not worth it,
Mhm.
you're never gonna
Should
amount
be
to
ashamed
that.
of yourself.
Yeah, you're not gonna get past this. You're always gonna be depressed. You're always gonna be in a bad relationship. You don't deserve anyone better. You believe those lies, so you pull it away and you don't forgive yourself. When I was able to forgive my dad, I was able to pray for my dad, and I was able to ask God to give me new ways to train my brain
Yeah.
to love my dad.
Yeah.
Because forgiveness is a process. That's
Right.
something that doesn't happen overnight either. I mean,
Right.
you really have to work at it. And
It's
sometimes
a
it
decision.
sometimes it can be an hourly thing. You know, 1 hour you might be like, I'm fine, whatever, forgiven, no big deal. And then the next hour you're like, how could they do this again? Or you
Yeah.
start reliving things that were done to you or whatever the situation
Right.
is. And you have to work at it. You're learning to develop new habits.
And there's grace for that. I think sometimes we get so frustrated with the process and frustrated with ourselves because we're like, well, you should be doing better than this, or sometimes we use our age, we're like, how old are you? You should, you're not a teenager anymore, you should be better. But we have to give ourselves grace. We need to forgive ourselves. We need to, see the value in ourselves to take that journey, to take those steps. When I'm thinking back in my life, like moments where I isolated myself or the temptation was so there. I remember husband just left me and I'm going through a miscarriage simultaneously, which was awful. It was an awful experience. It took weeks. And I had a 10-month-old baby. I didn't have the option of checking out. I
Yeah.
didn't. But I had those thoughts of just like, my family's 4 hours away in New York. I didn't have, I just lost my family. And I'm like, oh no. And the temptation is to just hide away. Don't talk to anybody. And to be honest with you, I can be like that. When something hard comes, my first reaction is this.
Mhm.
I will literally not even speak. And that's something I have to fight. I have to make sure. Even if it's texting a friend and being like, struggling today, pray for me. Or you know what I mean? Like something, speak somehow. Because if I let myself go down that like, that's a deep place and I don't want to go there. And I'm grateful that I had people who are like, you don't want to go there. We're not going to make you go there. You know what I mean? And that's the value of community. But when you're sometimes shocked and trauma, and or you're facing a decision you've made and you're like, oh my Lord, I've caused this, and here I am. Sometimes it makes you think the best way or the best course of action is by yourself, which is the enemy. That's never the right choice, you know what I mean? Even if sometimes you step away, sometimes emotions need to die down, so you separate yourself for a little bit, but you always come back to community. You always come back to a place of, you have to, because it takes a village to raise kids, but it takes a village to raise the Soviet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just takes other people to come. We were talking earlier about an issue that was highlighted in my life last night, and I'm like, oh, I need help. I need help. Like, I'm telling you right now, I can't do it on my own. And I'm not going to be prideful to be like, I got this.
Yeah.
I could totally, no.
Right.
I was like, I need your help. I feel defeated already before it started,
Yep.
and I need your help. But if I try to do this on my own, I'm just going to further the thoughts in my head. You can't do it. It's too big. You can't do it. And then you have these thoughts going in, and that's all you hear. That's
So
all
then
you
you
hear.
don't do it.
So you don't even try
Right.
to do it. Rather than, okay, guys, I'm being honest with you right now. Here's what happened. I need your help. What's the plan?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the plan to get to Soviet on track? And we need that. But then we have to understand that this is something God gives us. Like, God gives you your community. Use your community.
Yeah.
Come on.
You have to, and not use as an abuse, but
No.
but
Let
understand.
them know.
Yeah, people around you are resources,
Right.
and that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Because that's not for you to just hold the weight and become within yourself and be depressed. Like, use the people that God's put around you.
Yeah, it's the beauty of we all have different gifts. We all have different abilities. We're not the same. It's the beauty of free will. Like, He created us like that because I'm not going to have the same perspective every time as you guys are, but you're going to have insight that I don't have, and it's going to help me. And I have things that are going to help you. And like we touched on with Rocky the other day, like, we need each other. And just because we're struggling doesn't mean we can't help somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Isolation says you're of no good to anybody else. And sometimes isolation says they're of no good to you. Like, nobody. It does this generalization thing where and it becomes this me against the world
Yeah.
mentality,
Yeah.
and they're just gonna judge me. I'm fine over here by myself. But again, that's the lie, and you have to meet a lie with the truth. The truth is greater. Years and years ago, I think it was when I was going through my divorce, God was like, I was talking to the Lord, and I'm real honest. I don't talk to the Lord with like, the these and the thous. I'm like, here's what happened. Like, he's my friend.
I hear you. Me
And I
too.
should be able
I
to
let
talk
him
to my
know.
friend like
I let him
that.
know.
Like, that's not going down. That's just the way we talk. Like, let's get to know each other, Lord. But one day he said to me, big voice, little voice. And I was like, what? He's like, big voice, little voice. And I was like, could you expand on that, please? And he's like, sure. So he said, sometimes, I'm glad, I know it's the best thing to do is ask God to expand.
Yeah.
Always ask him
Yeah.
to expand, okay? And because sometimes God can be like that with me, like, will give me a one-liner, and you have to dig.
Yeah.
And if you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to be better, you better dig.
Big.
That's a
Deep.
side note. That was for
Dig
free.
deep.
Dig deep. And so I was like, okay, big voice, little voice. And it's like, sometimes life happens, and I'd been through so much trauma at that point. It was just like a lot of huge, awful things. And he was like, you talk about those things with a little voice. He's like, it did happen, so be truthful about it. It's like the idea of sometimes you're like, oh no, I'm not in pain. No, you're in pain.
Yeah.
Admit it. These things did happen to you. However, with the bigger voice and the louder voice and the greater voice, you declare who I am in your life. You declare your destiny. You declare the beautiful things that's been put inside of you to like actually live your life with purpose and
Yes.
with fire and with hope. That's the bigger voice. So the trauma, the bad decisions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thoughts of isolation, that is not what gets your greater voice. That's not what gets the volume in your life. God and his sovereignty, that gets the volume in your life. So big voice, little voice, and it's a choice.
Yeah.
So we have to come to a point when things happen to fight the isolation and not give greater weight to our sin, not give greater weight to
Right.
where we've missed it and broken relationships and things like that. No. Yes, you still have to talk it out loud and get help. Get help and
Yeah.
reach out. But that's not what gets the greater volume in my life. The greater volume is who God is and who He consistently proves Himself to be.
Right.
So again, sometimes when you're in isolation, you're just like, it actually takes your voice away.
It
Yeah,
does.
that's a good point. It really does.
That's what it does.
So we're going to continue talking about loneliness during our next session as well, since it's such a big topic. But we're going to talk more about dating and sexuality, and we're eventually going to get into a whole series on sexuality.
That
So
could be a
let's
while.
talk about
Yeah,
this.
we really are.
So come on back next week, and we will see you then, and we will be talking about dating and sexuality.
Dun, dun, dun. No, it'd be good.
All right,
Yeah.
see you guys next time. Thanks for joining
Bye.
us.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Awesome.
Oh, I just
I'm not sure when I started this, so that I tried to.
It's
Yeah.
like 2 minutes behind, like 2 minutes
Okay, so
before.
it should be about 30 minutes then.
Mhm.
I